Towers of Arkhanos is the first release from Brazilian publisher Creative Games Studio, but it's not the first design from Daniel Alves and Eurico Cunha, who have previously designed Masmorra, which was released by Come On and Spaghetti Western Games in one of their massive Kickstarters with lots of miniatures flying all over the place. The Towers of Arkhanos was kickstarted as well, and has now been picked up for release in North America by IDW Games. Arkhanos is an archmage who has found these towers, and now you control a magic school, and you have your master and apprentices, and you're going to go take charge and take as much control and prestige from the towers as you can to control them for yourself. Here are the components in the Towers of Arkhanos. You have a bunch of tower tiles, you have 4 base towers, you shuffle them, put 3 of them face up, 1 face down. Each player has a master token that has a figure printed on it and 7 apprentices. You have a bag of 40 dice with 10 dice each in 4 different colors. Each player has a spell book, you have some points, and you have a mana pool card that's laid off on the side. The game lasts 8 to 9 rounds depending on the number of players. In a 4-player game, we'd have each player have their pieces out here. At the start of a round, if the yellow player is going first, that player is going to draw 5 dice from the bag, roll them, and then draft a die and place it on one of the towers in order to score points or get a magic effect in their spell book. The towers have dice qualifications or requirements that you must meet in order to place the dice on the tower. So this uses only even yellow dice, odd purple dice, blues and 1s or 2s, and in the center you can have anything, which is helpful because often you can't place anything here without using a spell power. So the yellow player could pick up this purple 1 and place it here, and we'll score 2 points. And you take one of your figures, either master or apprentice, and you stand it next to your die to show ownership of that die. The green player going next, they could take one of these. If they put the yellow in here, they could do likewise and get 2 points. You can place a die in this space and you get points equal to the level of the tower. So right now 1, which is obviously worse than 2, but that point value escalates as the game continues. In this space, you place one of your figures and it's got a picture of another guy. So you can place one of your people on another spot somewhere on one of the towers. And you do this because you will score majority points when that tower is filled. Alternatively, you can take an apprentice and put it on the number 2 spell in your book. I'll explain those in just a moment. The red player has only these choices for dice, can't go anywhere here, so the red player may choose this, go here, and in their own book, this is the yellow player's book, they would place a figure on the 2 to show that they have a 2 spell. They can spend that spell to raise or lower the value of a die by 1. The other spells let you flip a die over to the opposite side, or treat a die as if it's a color of your choice, or pull a die off the mana pool. Because you roll 5 dice, only 4 will be drafted. The remaining die will go over to the mana pool. If you have the 6th spell, which is what the blue player is going to get, because there's only 6s left. And you put something here. On their own board, they get a 6th spell. And with the 6th spell, you can swap the die here for one of the dice in the middle, which in this case doesn't do anything, but perhaps on a later turn it will be useful. And the remaining die goes over up here to show the round. We continue with the next round. So the green player goes first, draws 5 dice, rolls them. Got here, here, here. Green has no spell powers. There's no red to place. The yellow can't go here. The blue is the only die that I rolled that can be placed on one of the towers. So the green figure can go here, get 2 points, take the point tokens as you score. The other players continue, and they will only be able to go in the center, except possibly for the red and blue players who have access to spell powers. The red player can raise or lower the value of a die by 1, so the red player can actually spend this spell to make this a 4, go over here for 2 points. The blue player can take a die from the middle to put it on one of the sides, but that doesn't do anything. If they take a 6th spell, well, they already have a figure on the 6th space of their spell book, so they would not get a benefit. So probably want to take a 4. So they'll put this here. They'll get someone on the 4 spell. And when the 3 spots of a tower are filled, you score points for who has the most influence on that space. In this case, the blue has 2 figures, red has 1. So in the center space, the player with the most influence gets 3 points. Player with the second most influence gets 2 points. On the outer areas, you get 6 points for having majority and then 4 points for having second place. The people take back their figures. You take over the top space, flip it over, and now the remaining yellow player will take one of these dice and put it up here, and they get a spell of their own. This goes over on the side, and you continue with the rounds. The painted figure, the master figure, is worth 2 influence whenever you place it. So you roll the dice here. Again, the red player starts, has no spells available. This is the only die that works for what's here, and we continue. So the game lasts 8 rounds, with each player being first twice in a 4-player game. If you play a 2-player game, you're going to draft dice twice. So if yellow and red were the only players in a 2-player game, yellow would draft, red would draft yellow, and then red, and then the remaining die would go over to the mana pool. With 3 players, you play 9 rounds, pulling out 4 dice for a round, and each player drafts once, first 3 times over the course of the game. At the end of the game, you're going to score points based on the leftover majorities. So in this case, these are tied, and so they'd each get 1 point. If you're the only one on there, you're going to get 3 points, just as if you're scoring for the center tower. And there's an overview of the Towers of Arkhanos, which I played 5 times on our review copy from Creative Games Studio with 2 and 3 players. And our games have played out very similarly to the example rounds that I showed you when talking about how the game works, where we pull out 4 or 5 dice for the round, roll them, and 1 or 2 dice can be placed into towers based on the requirements of what can be placed there. And everything else goes in the center. And it happens over and over again. And yes, when you place dice into the center tower, then you get a spell that matches the number of the die that's placed there. But you don't get a choice on the spell, you just get what's there. So maybe you get to pull a die from the mana pool, but the mana pool dice weren't useful in the first place, so that spell won't be useful until you actually progress along the towers and you get new requirements on the specific towers. Or it's just, you can add a number to a die and maybe it works and maybe it doesn't, or you can flip a die over, and things just have not played out where they've been very useful. So we have lots of rounds where your choice is obvious. As the first player, I can place this 1 die and score more points. You get more points for the majority if you have more influence on the exterior towers, where things have specific color and number requirements. You want to go there to get those points, but you may not have a choice. So if you got 1 die that goes there, you're like, yes, I can do this. And then you're going to get 2 points. You're going to get points equal to the level, which when it's on the second level, it's get 2 points or get 2 points. So there's no choice. Or place 1 there and you put an extra guy on the board. The extra guy, where you get to put him on the board or in the spellbook, is an interesting choice because you have 7 apprentices available to you. You have 1 master. When you score for the majority, 6 points for first, 4 for second, or 3 for first, 2 for second, depending on whether it's the center or the exterior towers. And then you take all the people back and you build only on the dice. But when you get to place an extra guy there, there's no die. And so it's an interesting bit of resource management that doesn't really play out as much as I thought it would. So if we replay the 3rd round and pretend I rolled this instead of what I actually rolled. So the red player is going to go first. They can choose, the 1 or 5 are going to go here, or the 2 can go here, the 1 can go there. There's lots of choices available to you. So if we put this here, where you get points equal to the level, that's only 1, but I can put my master here, and now red has 2 influence, yellow and green only have 1 influence. So red gets 6 points for first place, takes these, puts them face down. Yellow and green each get 3 points, they put those down, and then you put the new tower on top. After people reclaiming their pieces, except the green one here, he serves as a pillar. And now you have fewer people available to you. It's an interesting choice to bury people over the course of the game. However, the game lasts only 8 rounds, and you have 7 apprentices and 8 masters. So it's kind of okay to lose those apprentices. I've not seen it yet where someone has run out completely. You might have people in your spell book and maybe only one person left, and if you run out, then you have to pull people from your spell book in order to add them to a tower. But I've seen that only once over the course of 5 games. It feels like it should be a tighter choice and possibly have fewer apprentices available so that it matters more if you make that extra effort where you're fighting for the majority in something and you really have to weigh the benefit of those points over the possibility of losing that figure. The concept of the Towers of Arkhanos is straightforward. It's a dice placement game where you're going to get different benefits. You have choices where to go. You'll have spells that will let you manipulate the dice. Everything seems like it should work together where you got a limited pool of resources with your masters and apprentices. Everything seems like it should work. And yet, over the 5 games that I've played, well, it works, but often you don't have choices beyond put a guy here, okay, and then I go in the center, and then I get a spell, and maybe I already have that spell and I don't even get to gain the spell because that's all I have available to me. The 2-player game has proved a little more interesting because then you get to draft twice in a round, so you've got some play over making a choice, your first choice, and then possibly what's going to come back to you. Sometimes that's mattered as you've tried to get something around the table back to you to score majorities. But with 3 players, you're only going to choose 1 die each round. And I'm going to choose first, and then second, or first, and then third, and then second, and I'll choose first again. And so choosing second, sometimes you have no choice. Choosing third, often no choice. So that was it. We played the game, we scored the points, and we're like, I see what they're going for, and yet in practice, it hasn't delivered something that you would say, like, yes, there's hard choices. I have to weigh what I'm going to do and see the long-term benefits for short-term. It all works. Everything's there. And yet